Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you all here tonight on this beautiful occasion. We are celebrating the birth of our second Imam, Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As most of you are aware, we are beginning our Jashn with a special presentation. Just a little over a month ago, we had announced the launch of our own school, the Unity Academy of Chicago. And I'm very excited that we have made, alhamdulillah, a lot of progress and very excited for this coming year, inshallah. And we would like to provide some updates, introduce our staff. And for that presentation, I would request Brother Abbas Khanji to please come forward. And please welcome him with a very loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Respected ulama, my elders, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, congratulations to everyone, and a special congratulations to Imam of our time on the birth of our second Imam, Imam Hassan alayhi salam. As Sajjad mentioned, last month on the 3rd of Sha'ban, during the wiladat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we made a Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We made an announcement introducing the opening of the Unity Academy of Chicago, our very own school to provide a high quality education within an Islamic environment to the children of our community. Our thought behind establishing the school was that many times parents are faced with a choice whether to send their kids to Islamic school or the public school or a private school, and sometimes that choice had trade-offs. They had to trade off getting a great academic experience or an Islamic environment, and that is a choice and a trade-off that we felt does not need to be made. Our community has evolved, and we are now ready to put together a school that offers the very best in academics as well as an environment that has the values and Islamic teachings that we want our kids to inherit from us. So this is why it is our mission to equip our children not only with the best academics, but also the Islamic worldview, so that when they grow up and they enter into the real world, they will view the world through an Islamic worldview. And that will help, inshallah, guide them to be better people and better assets to the community and their families. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Oops.
Recite another salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is that better? So, we come to you 1 month later with some updates. And happy to announce that registration is open and has been open for a few weeks now. We are registering students for a full-time Montessori program. This is for students who are in the age of between 3 and 5 as of September 1st. So if the child is at least 3 years old as of September 1st and below the age of 6, they are eligible to enroll in Unity Academy of Chicago. For those children who are under the age of 4 as of September 1st, so these are children who are 3 years old, we have a half-day option. The full-day option, school runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The half-day option will run from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Our first day of school is August 25th, and registration, alhamdulillah, has started, and I'm pleased to let you know that almost 50% of the available seats have already been registered for, so there's been very positive feedback, and we're very excited to fill up the rest of those seats, inshallah, in the coming weeks. For more information on how to register, you can visit our website. It's right here, theunityacademy.org, or you can always email the school at info@theunityacademy.org. So, here's what we've been up to in the past month. As you know, every school has a classroom, and every classroom needs furniture and equipment and tools. Alhamdulillah, we spent a lot of time researching and networking with different Montessoris, both Islamic Montessoris, secular Montessoris, all over the country. We've also spoken with the leading accreditation organizations and asking them what should be in the classroom. And we've learned through this process there is a wide range of qualities and materials that you can use in the classroom, from very budget conscious to very premium that you would find in some of the leading schools in the world. Alhamdulillah, after doing a lot of research, we have decided that this is an investment into our children, only the best for our kids. So we've placed orders for furniture, equipment, and other materials that go into the classroom, which you would normally see in some of the better schools found in other Montessori schools across the country. So we're really delighted that we've done this, we've done the research, we feel good about what we've selected, and inshallah our children will benefit from having a really nice, well-equipped classroom. The other thing that school needs, besides all of the furniture and the equipment, is the actual classroom. We are having our 3 to 5 age group children in the South Campus building. So this is the South building. The South Campus, after looking at different options, engaging with different consultants and educators, it was determined that the South Campus actually has the best layout for children of this age. It has maximum natural light coming in. They don't need to climb the stairs to get into the building. It has multiple exits and entrances for safety reasons, and it has a lot of open space. So inshallah, we'll be having our 3 to 5 age group classes in the South Campus building. We will begin renovations of that building within a couple of weeks, and it should be completed by the end of June, inshallah. So our classroom will be, this is an example of what a Montessori classroom looks like. You'll notice kind of the high quality wood furniture, the floors, the natural light coming in. And this is really what our classroom will look like, this similar quality product. And that will be, inshallah, completed by the end of June. So behind the scenes, there's also a lot going on. In addition to having the furniture and the equipment and the classrooms, every organization needs to have processes, it needs to have procedures, it needs to have a robust system of how the school will operate. So we have been establishing all of those processes as well, whether it is a teacher handbook, a parent handbook, our treasury functions in terms of making sure our accounting is very robust and accountable. All of those have also been established in the past month, and we're very excited about that. Finally, on the administration side, we have engaged with a cloud-based system that will manage our classroom. So when students enroll and you need to take a lot of information from the students, all of that is going to be cloud-based, accessible to the teachers and the administrators remotely, as well as having a parent portal, and that will make a real seamless experience for all of our staff, students, and parents. Now, even with the best equipment and the best classroom and the best procedures, the school is only as good as its teachers. At the end of the day, if you have the best equipment that money can buy, but you don't have a teacher to deliver the education to the child, the school really is nothing. So when we launched the school, we had set out very high standards for our teachers. We said that we don't want any teachers with no experience or people who are just joining the academic setting. We wanted teachers who have at least 5 years of Montessori classroom experience, have their training done here in the United States, and also be of Shia Ithna Ashari faith. And when you put all of those filters on, the universe of candidates becomes very thin. We literally launched an international job hunt for this position. And we talked to a lot of different Montessoris who have been established. And when they looked at our job criteria, they said, we don't know where you're going to find this teacher, because all of these high criteria that you have put, we don't see where that exists. And what we did is we kind of started from scratch and trained here and there, and that's how we got started. But we didn't give up, And alhamdulillah, we did find an amazing head teacher, a person who does not even meet these expectations, but far exceeds them. Sister Sabah Haider is well known to many of us. She is a dedicated member of our community. She is a Montessori student herself. She has been teaching in a Montessori for 27 years. Her children are also the products of a Montessori education. She is literally the ideal teacher that not only Unity Academy would like to have, any Montessori school. She could literally walk into any Montessori in the country, and that school would be delighted to have her and put her up as the most experienced teacher that they have. So we are delighted to announce that Sister Sabah Haider is going to be our head teacher for the Unity Academy of Chicago. Please recite one salawat. This Friday, inshallah, we will have a session with Sister Sabah and the rest of the teaching staff. Information is here, but it's this Friday at 7 o'clock. Registration is available on our website. And you can also check the Bayt al-Ilm website. There's a link to this event there. We invite all of the interested families, bring your children to come to this event, meet the teaching staff, interact with them, learn about what the Montessori process is, learn about what the school has to offer. And please, for those who are not here, mention it to them so that they can also participate in this event. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Sister Sabah Haider. As she comes up, please welcome her with a loud salawat.
Recite another salawat.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And thank you, Brother Abbas, for such a wonderful introduction. I am truly blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has guided me to serve the children of our community and to be also taking a path towards increasing my spiritual journey. So I'm really blessed to, to be honored for this job. In a school, it's critical to have a great community of teachers and not just one teacher. One teacher can be a great role model, a great guide, a great facilitator, but she needs support. And without support, things do not work well. We have wonderful classroom, wonderful equipment, wonderful teacher, but there needs to be a team with her to run a school successfully. So we were also looking for wonderful supporters who would help me in this journey and task. And I am so delighted and honored to have Sister Fatima Khanji assisting me in my classroom. She is a highly qualified and experienced Montessori assistant. She has a BS in biology from University of Massachusetts, summa cum laude, Montessori professional, paraprofessional certificate from Seton Montessori Teacher Center, which is an amazing center for training teachers. She has worked in several eminent Montessori schools in Illinois, for example, Rose Hall Montessori and Montessori School of Montessori Academy of North Hoffman. She has also worked as an assistant teacher at River Garden Montessori, which is an Islamic Montessori school. Prior to this experience, she has also facilitated programs here in Baitul Ilm, for example, the Mom and Taught program. She has a deep knowledge of Montessori. We have had wonderful discussions lately about Montessori, and she's helping me with the design, with the facilitation of materials and planning for our upcoming Montessori prepared environment. Fatima loves to connect with children, and that is really a gift of a teacher, especially a Montessori teacher. You need to connect with kids first and then start teaching later. So I'm looking forward to be collaborating and working with her in the new academic year. Another great staff member that we will have on our team will be Sisters Zainab al-Baghdadi, who is also extremely qualified for teaching Arabic and Quran studies to our young students. She has a BS in chemistry for secondary education from Baghdad University, Iraq. She will also be taking a pair of professional training, Montessori training course in summer at the Midwest Montessori Teacher Training Center, which is another very good training center for teachers. All my training has been from there as well. She has 14 years of teaching experience, and she's a certified substitute teacher for the Illinois Board of Education. So that will also help us in many different areas. She has taught at Baitul Ilm Sunday School for 12 years. So she's going to bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to us. We have also been collaborating almost weekly this week about how to incorporate Arabic and Quran in a Montessori setting, and I'm very excited to work with her. She is homeschooling her children for the last 7 years, and I deeply respect moms who take this honor of homeschooling. It is not an easy job. A school also needs a good administrative support. Teachers can teach, but they also need something from the admin, someone they can rely on and who could help them with the running of the school. So we have Sayyida Hussain, Sister Sayyida Hussain, who will be our school administrator. She has a BA Economics from University of Chicago. She will also be going for a Montessori paraprofessional course at the Midwest Montessori Teacher Training Center this summer. She has 10 years of experience and gained valuable knowledge also as a homeschool mom and Sunday school teacher. She has helped organize many events here at Baitul Ilm and for Sunday school related events such as Muharram workshops. Also, she has organized Ramadan, summer camps, Sunday school science fair, and mother-daughter night. So with such a dynamic team, I think we are going to be serving our students in the best way possible. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us in this journey, and we need the du'as of our community to be with us. Thank you.
I would like to thank you, Brother Abbas Kanji and Sister Sabah Heather, for providing us this very important update. And I would like to remind everyone again, we have this event coming Friday, April 30th at 7 p.m. We have emails with the detail and a link to register. It's also available on our website. There are multiple ways to register for it, and I encourage all parents to do that and learn about Unity Academy, about our teachers. So please pass on the word. Recite a salawat. With that, I would now request Brother Shafqat Shah for the recitation of Manqabat. Recite another.
آپ سب کو مولا امام حسن علیہ السلام کی ولادت کی مبارک ہو. شکریہ. مولا کی شان میں منقبت پیش کرنے جا رہا ہوں. بارے دیگر حدیث صلوات. جہاں میں سورہ کوثر کی جب تفسیر بولے گی، جہاں میں سورہ کوثر کی جب تفسیر بولے گی، تو اس تفسیر میں شبر، تو اس تفسیر میں شبر کی ہی تصویر بولے گی، جہاں میں سورہ کوثر کی جب تفسیر بولے گی. میرے مولا حسن کو زیر چادر ہاتھ تو لینے دو، میرے مولا حسن کو زیر چادر ہاتھ تو لینے دو. ملک کے بولنے سے پہلے، ملک کے بولنے سے پہلے خود تطہیر بولے گی، جہاں میں سورہ کوثر کی جب تفسیر بولے گی. حسن نے سلحنا مالک کے خاموشی سے بتلایا، حسن نے سلحنا مالک کے خاموشی سے بتلایا، کہ ہارا کون یہ کرتاس، کہ ہارا کون یہ کرتاس کی تحریر بولے گی، جہاں میں سورہ کوثر کی جب تفسیر بولے گی. حسن بولے ہری سے شام کو قیدی بنا لوں گا، حسن بولے ہری سے شام کو قیدی بنا لوں گا، قلم بن جائے گا زنجیر، قلم بن جائے گا زنجیر، تو زنجیر بولے گی. حسن بولے ہری سے شام کو قیدی بنا لوں گا،
حسن بولے ہری سے شام کو قیدی بنا لوں گا، قلم بن جائے گا زنجیر، قلم بن جائے گا زنجیر، تو زنجیر بولے گی جہاں میں سورہ کوثر کی جب تفسیر بولے گی۔ صلوات محمد علیہ۔ ایک دوسری منقبت کے کچھ شعر۔ دنیا میں بے مثال مقدر حسن کا ہے، دنیا میں بے مثال مقدر حسن کا ہے، بابا امام نانا پیمبر حسن کا ہے، دنیا میں بے مثال انکار میں حسین کے تیور حسن کا ہے، انکار میں حسین کے تیور حسن کا ہے، الفاظ ہیں حسین کے جوہر حسن کا ہے، دنیا میں بے مثال خلد بری سے لایا ہے، دیکھو لباس ہی، خلد بری سے لایا ہے، دیکھو لباس ہی، رضوان سا فرشتہ بھی نوکر حسن کا ہے، دنیا میں بے مثال گنبد بھی سبز ہے جو مزار رسول کا، گنبد بھی سبز ہے جو مزار رسول کا، یعنی نبی کے دوش پر پیکر حسن کا ہے، دنیا میں بے مثال یہ بھی شریک کے کرب و بلا ہے بکر و فر، یہ بھی شریک کے کرب و بلا ہے بکر و فر، قاسم نہیں ہے دیکھو ये पेकर हसन का है, कासिम नहीं है देखो, ये पेकर हसन का है, दुनिया में बेमिसाल मुकद्दर हसन का है, दुनिया में बेमिसाल। सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद।
MashaAllah, Sheikh bhai, beautiful recitation like always. For his sake of the salamati, please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Before I invite Maulana, I would like to quickly acknowledge our sponsors for tonight's Jashn and Iftar. It was sponsored by Khala Jan. For her, Isale Sawab, and for Isale Sawab of all of their marhumeen, let us recite a Surah Fatiha with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali And for the sustenance and well-being of Khalajan's family, I would request all of us to recite another loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. With that, I would now request Hujjatul Islam, Sheikh Rizwan Arastu, please come to the podium. Please welcome him with another loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد. I'd like to begin by offering my congratulations to you all on the birth of our Imam Abu Muhammad, Imam Hassan ibn Ali al-Mujtaba, salamullahi alayhima. I'll begin the lecture by giving you a short account of his birth, and then I'd like to share a hadith from him and offer some reflections on that hadith. So his birth story is told to us by an eyewitness. It's a woman by the name of Asma, who was the midwife who was helping in the birth of the Imam. Oftentimes people think that it's Asma bint Umays who was there, but she was not present. This is in the 3rd year after the Hijrah. So this is between the battles of Badr and Uhud, when Imam Hassan is born on the 15th of Ramadan in that year. So Asma bint Umays, the wife of Ja'far al-Tayyar, was still in Habasha, still in Abyssinia at the time. She was not present in Medina at this time. So the Asma, that is the midwife, her name is Asma bint Yazid ibn al-Sakan al-Ansariya. She's a Medinan lady whose job it is to do this midwifery. So she is the one who is there present, and then she is also the one who brings the baby out to Rasulullah to present him to him. We're told that she brings the baby out wrapped in a yellow cloth, and Rasulullah immediately, his first reaction is to show dislike for the wrapping. And he says that I've told you not to wrap babies in yellow. Right? So this is something that he says strongly, and then he replaces the yellow cloth that's swaddling the baby with a white cloth or white sheet, and then he begins the different rituals that now we practice as a sunnah of childbirth. So the first time that these things were practiced was for Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and now all of us who have had children, inshallah, we've had the tawfiq to practice these same sunan of Rasulullah. So the first is to recite the adhan in the right ear of the baby and the iqamah in the left ear. He does these two things. He waits till the 7th day, and then he carries out some other rituals. That's the day when they shave his head, right? Which is also one of the sunnahs now, that we shave the head of male and female babies on the 7th day. The weight of the hair that he shaved from the Imam's head, he gave as silver. So the equivalent weight of silver he gave as charity. They did an aqiqah, so he sacrificed a ram, so an animal of the same gender as the baby, a ram, as the aqiqah for Imam Hassan alayhi salam. In terms of the name, the conversation that Asma narrates, she says that Rasulullah asks Amir al-Mu'mineen, what name have you chosen for the baby? Imam Ali's very respectful response to Rasulullah is, I would not dare to jump to naming the baby before you could first name it. And then Rasulullah also, he in turn says, I also would not dare to choose a name for the baby until Allah tells me what the name is. Right? So in the meantime, Gabriel alayhi salam, he comes down to Rasulullah and he tells him that Ali is to you as Aaron was to Moses, except that there's no prophet after you. So it's appropriate that the son of yours should be named after the sons of Aaron. So Rasulullah asks what were the names of Aaron's sons, and he says Shabbar and Shabir. That's the Arabic pronunciation of it. They're Hebrew words. Shabbar and Shabir. We put a shadda on it in Urdu and Farsi. It becomes Shabbir. Rasulullah says, but we speak Arabic. What is the Arabic equivalent of this Shabbar and Shabir? And so Gabriel says it's Hassan. So that's how Imam Hassan is born. He's presented to Rasulullah, and then Rasulullah inaugurates these different sunan that now we have the tawfiq to follow in the footsteps of. And Imam Hassan's name is chosen not by Rasulullah, not by his own father, but by Allah himself. Let me share a hadith with you. This hadith is part of a conversation. There are many conversations that are recorded between Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Muawiyah. Right? Oftentimes Muawiyah by himself, or sometimes with a group of the Banu Umayyah who are his lackeys, they would have interactions with the Imam, sometimes very disrespectful, oftentimes trying to call into question the Imam's motives, his closeness to Rasulullah, and all different things. And we have records of Imam Hassan's responses to these. So this is part of one of those conversations. This part is not directly related to the larger context, but I just wanted to let you know that these kinds of conversations do happen, and we have records of them. The part of the hadith that I want to share with you is where Imam Hassan alayhi salam divides people up into 3 categories based on their connection to wilayah, their connection to the Imam. He says, إِنَّمَا النَّاسُ ثَلَاثَةً. People are of 3 categories. مُؤْمِنٌ يَعْرِفُ حَقَّنَا وَيُسَلِّمُ لَنَا وَيَأْتَمُّ بِنَا. The first one is a believer who recognizes our right, our authority as Allah's vicegerents and our authority over them. So the first person recognizes this, وَيُسَلِّمُ لَنَا, and he submits to our authority. وَيَأْتَمُّ بِنَا, and he follows us as his imam. Right? فَذَلِكَ نَاجٍ مُحِبٌّ لِلَّهِ وَلِي. This person has achieved salvation, and this person is a lover of God and a lover of mine. Right, so that's the first category of people. The second, on the opposite extreme, is وَنَاصِبٌ لَنَا الْعَدَاوَةِ يَتَبَرَّأُ مِنَّا وَيَلْعَنُنَا ويستحل دماءنا ويجحد حقنا ويدين الله بالبراءة منا. The second person is a nasibi. Right? The word nasibi literally means someone who has enmity for the Ahlul Bayt. Right? So it's one who has enmity for us, who does bara'ah of us, who cuts off his ties with us. وَيَلْعَنُنَا, calls down Allah's damnation on us, considers our blood, spilling of our blood, to be halal and permissible. يَسْتَحِلُّ دِمَاءَنَا وَيَجْحَدُ حَقَّنَا, and denies us our right. So he denies the fact that they have any authority from Allah or otherwise. They have no authority to rule, no authority over deen. Right? They deny the right of the Imam. وَيَدِينُ اللَّهَ بِالْبَرَاءَةِ مِنَّا, and the basis of this person's connection to Allah, or purported connection to Allah, is that I stand for no ties, cut off ties from the Imam. Right? That's his kind of what defines him as a Muslim, is that he has no ties with the Imam. He cuts off himself from Ali in particular and from Hassan alayhim as-salam. فَهَذَا كَافِرٌ مُشْرِكٌ فَاسِقٌ. And this person is an unbeliever, a polytheist even. At that level of like the worst possible thing a person could be, this person is that. فَاسِقٌ, an evildoer, a corrupt person. وَإِنَّمَا كَفَرَ وَأَشْرَكَ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُ كما سب الله عدوا بغير علم كذلك يشرك بالله بغير علم. So like people who are mushrik sometimes, in enmity for those who believe, they might speak out against Allah in ignorance of who Allah is, and they transgress the bounds because of different feelings of chauvinism and false senses of pride and dignity. If they're insulted, then they lash back by insulting Allah and saying, well, if you insult my God, I'll insult your God. And they lash out in that way, and they transgress, but it's out of a kind of ignorance, not realizing the severity of what they're saying. So these people are also mushrik in the same way Imam Hassan says. The third is the one I want to focus on. وَرَجُلٌ آخِذٌ بِمَا لَا يُخْتَلَفُ فِيهِ. The third person, he holds fast to those things that are points of consensus. Right? So those ideas in Islam that are a point of consensus for all people. We all believe in one God. He agrees with that, and he says, yes, I commit myself to that. We all believe in the Quran. We all believe in these different rituals and different practices and Risala, Rasulullah, and these things. So he commits himself to those things that are points of consensus amongst all Muslims. وَرَدَّ عِلْمَ مَا أَشْكَلَ عَلَيْهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ مَعَ وِلَايَتِنَا وَلَا يَأْتَمُّ بِنَا. But those things about which he's confused, that there's not a point of consensus, there are partisans now. You have some people who say that Ali is the wali after Rasulullah and is the Khalifa and has authority from Allah, he's ma'soom. And you have people who say that's not the case. At most, he's just a good companion, and yes, he was knowledgeable, yes, he was brave, but he has no authority from Allah, he's not infallible. So you have a point of difference between different members of the ummah. And so this third person says, I'm not going to take sides. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is true. I'm not sure if that is true. As a result, he fails to treat the Imam as the Imam that he is. He says, to be safe, let me hold back, let me not commit myself to anything. So هذا لا يأتم بنا ولا يعادينا. But better than the second group, this person is not an enemy of the Ahlul Bayt either. Right? So while he doesn't align himself with them and commit himself to them, he doesn't declare enmity to them either. لا يعادينا ولا يعرف حقنا. He doesn't know our right and our authority. فنحن نرجو أن يغفر الله له. Our hope is that Allah will forgive this person for his ignorance, for the lack of commitment, for a potentially excusable transgression against the truth. Right? So we hope that Allah will forgive him, he says, وَيُدْخِلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. We hope that Allah will enter this person into paradise. فَهَذَا مُسْلِمٌ ضَعِيف. This third person he characterizes as a Muslim, yes, but ضعيف, weak in his faith. Right? The word that we're more commonly used to using, and the Quran uses as well, is mustad'af. Right? Somebody who is, yes, weak, but put into a position of weakness because of circumstances. That circumstance could be ignorance, It could be societal norms. It could be biases that he's been exposed to. It could be influences that other people have had on him that he hasn't been able to shake loose. So those kinds of things that sometimes put us in a particular position where we are not able to see truth or see the other side or change for the better, that's a position of istid'af. You're da'if, not of your own choosing, but because circumstances have made it that way. So there's a level of excuse for this person that Allah is willing to give. This person is not as good, is not at the level of those people who are with knowledge and are committed through that knowledge to the Ahlul Bayt, but they're also not at the level of those people who knowingly are enemies of the Ahlul Bayt. Right? There's a middle ground for these kinds of people called istid'af. This person is a Muslim but da'if. Recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. So this third category, the way the Imam speaks about him and the way he prays for him as well, raises some questions, because in our Sharia, we have some specific rules about our interactions with non-Muslims and our interactions with non-Shia, non-Imamis. And if we're not careful, then we might interpret the prayer that the Imam offers at the end. We hope that Allah will forgive this person as being at odds with what we know from other traditions of the Ahlul Bayt and the fatwas of our maraji', that is something that's beyond the pale, that is something that we're not allowed to do. So I just want to share two particular rulings that we have, and I'll share some ahadith from Al-Kafi with you as well to help us know these two things. And the reason why I think it's relevant and important is because sometimes when we live in this society, we want to do things to expose ourselves to others. We've now, as a Muslim American kind of community, we've gotten to the point where no one can be ignorant of our presence, right? When I was growing up 20, 30 years ago, actually 40 years ago, it wasn't like that, right? People didn't know what Islam was. They didn't know anything about my religion. And growing up in the South, it was a completely foreign thing. And so the way I interacted with the world was very different from the way my children and probably your children can now interact with people. Now everyone knows what Islam is. People know what Ramadan is. My children tell me, teachers and principals and everyone come to them, and ahead of Ramadan they say, congratulations, or they say, what can we do to help you? And we know your holiday's coming up and all these different things. And they're able to interact in a very different way than I was able to. In this kind of environment, one of the things that we like to do is to use our greeting to greet people. And oftentimes you'll hear speeches given by Muslims to non-Muslims, and they'll begin with the Islamic greeting, Tahiyyatul Islam, Assalamu alaikum. And it seems like a very nice thing to do. It seems like a very nice way to include people and to connect with people and just share a very kind of basic, fundamental Islamic cultural practice and share that with people. And they also learn it. It's a very easy phrase. It's similar to Shalom Alaikum that Jews have as well. And it's very easy for people to adopt that. And then in turn, non-Muslims will sometimes use that as a way to greet us. When they see that we're Muslims, oftentimes in the stores, I don't know if you had this experience, but people will say Assalamu alaikum to us just because they know that's the greeting that they're supposed to say to us as Muslims, not because they're Muslim. All right, so all that sounds very good, but there are some rules that we have that we should observe, and be sure to be careful of these rules so that we don't do anything that's beyond the pale. That's transgressing the bounds of what we're supposed to do with this greeting, because it is Tahiyyatul Islam. It's the greeting of Muslims for Muslims. It's not the greeting by Muslims to non-Muslims, right? And so while other kinds of kindness, other kinds of respect, other kinds of interacting in a positive way are perfectly good, this particular salam is something that's reserved for Muslims. And we should know that and practice that as well. That's one reason. I'll share some ahadith to explain this. The other is prayers. Recently, there was a kind of a national figure in the academic world who passed away as a Sunni, but he had done many things for Shias as well, and he had done things to kind of like in the name of unity. He had done things to serve the Shiite community and the Sunni community and brought them together. So he'd done many good things, and so when he passed away, there were lots of offers of prayers for his forgiveness, for mercy of Allah on him by Shias, and this is also something that seems very good. It seems like the right thing to do. But we have guidance that tells us this is not the right way to interact. There are other kinds of prayers that we can offer and should offer, but these particular prayers of mercy and forgiveness for a person, they cannot be prayed for every single person. There are certain restrictions. So let me share some ahadith with you to address these 2 points so that we can be clear on what the position of the Ahlul Bayt is and then what our position should be so that we can also fall in line with them. Salawat ala Muhammad wa alihi. So let's start with the second point, praying for forgiveness and mercy on people. So we have a chapter in Al-Kafi when it's talking about Janazah prayers. Right? Praying in the Janazah prayer, we just offered a couple of Janazah prayers so it's fresh in our mind. You have 5 takbirs, and in between those 5 takbirs, you have 4 dhikrs that you say. The first is shahada, the shahadatan. The second is a salawat. The third is a prayer for forgiveness for all believers. And the 4th dhikr is a prayer for the particular mayyit who's in front of you. Allahumma ighfir li hadha al-mayyit. Right? That is how you pray the Janazah prayer for an Imami Shi'i. What if the person is not an Imami Shi'i? Sunni, non-Imami Shi'i. Then what do? Can you still offer the Janazah prayer the same way? Since they're Muslims, we still have a duty. It's still a fard kifaya, a wajib kifa'i, that we have to offer the prayer insofar as they are Muslims. So that duty remains. But then how do we pray for them if we can't pray directly for their forgiveness? Allahumma ighfir li hadha al-mayyit. Allah, forgive this particular deceased person. So we have different ahadith where the imams either teach about this or they themselves practice this and their companions observe them. And that gives the basis for our Islamic ruling for what to do with these kinds of situations. And then we can expand that practice beyond the Janazah prayer to the rest of our life as well. If we're going to offer prayers for someone, how should we do it? And what are the red lines? The first hadith I'll share with you is from Muhammad ibn Muslim. He narrates this from either Imam Baqir or Imam Sadiq alayhim as-salam. He says, "As-salatu ala al-mustad'af walladhi la ya'rif as-salah wa la ya'rif as-salatu ala al-nabi wad-du'a lil-mu'minin wal-mu'minat." He says, if you're going to pray the Janazah prayer for a mustad'af person and a person who doesn't know, meaning who's not a Shi'i, man la ya'rif is a code word for someone who's not an Imami Shi'i. Then what do? First he skips the shahadatan in this particular description. That's a given. You do the shahadatan, but then he skips to the salah ala nabi, which is the salawat in the second dhikr after the second takbir. وَالدُّعَاء لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. And the third dhikr, we make dua for all believers, male and female. تَقُولُ رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِلَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا سَبِيلَكَ وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ. He says after the 4th takbir, that last dua, instead of saying, Allahumma ighfir li hadha al-mayyit, oh Allah, forgive this particular person, speak or pray for forgiveness in general terms. Right? Use this phrase that comes in Surah Ghafir. Right, in the beginning of Surah Ghafir, we have a description of الَّذِينَ يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشِ, the ones who bear the throne of Allah. They offer this prayer, رَبَّنَا وَسِعْتَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ رَحْمَةً فَاغْفِرْ لِلَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا سَبِيلَكَ وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ. Now, those angels are praying for the believers. It even says al-mu'mineen. It's praying for the believers who tabu, have turned towards Allah, who have done tawbah to Allah, turned towards Allah, وَاتَّبَعُوا سَبِيلَكَ, and have followed your path, the path that leads to you, Allah. Right? So in that verse, it's talking specifically about believers who are like this. But now that phrase is also a very general phrase. Those who have turned to Allah, those who have followed the truth, that's the language you're supposed to use in a Janazah prayer for a non-Shi'i. Pray for forgiveness, but in general terms. And if the person that you're praying for, this non-Shi'i, if he's truly mustad'af and excused for his ignorance, then he'll be included in the dua as well. He will be one of the objects of that dua. And if he's not, then he won't be. But you're doing your duty to pray, to open up your heart with mercy, but you're doing it in a way that's abiding by these red lines that Allah has set, so that we don't ask for something that Allah has decided not to give. Right? And that's the bottom line. That's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want to ever be at odds with Allah. The whole idea behind tawalli and tabarri is to align ourselves. Align ourselves with God and everything godly, and do tabarri, align ourselves against everything that's ungodly. So now if I'm going to make a dua and pray for something haram, for instance, right? Oh Allah, give me the tawfiq to do something haram. And I can pray like that. I can say those words. Is that a correct dua? Allah has prohibited me from doing something haram, and now I'm praying that Allah give me the tawfiq to do that haram thing. There's a dissonance between those two things. On the one hand, I'm praying to Allah and showing subservience to Allah, but I'm praying against Allah because I'm asking for something that's against what He wants. Right? So that's what we want to avoid. A few days ago, I was talking about the idea of tafweed, that Allah has delegated authority to legislate to Rasulullah. And the hadith describes delegation. It first says that Allah trained Rasulullah in such a way that he was وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. That's the end result of the training of Allah. That Rasulullah no longer speaks on his own behalf. He doesn't have his own independent will. Or rather, we should say his own independent will is completely in sync with Allah's will. So whatever Rasulullah prays for, it's answered because that's exactly what Allah wants. There's no difference between what Allah wants explicitly and what Rasulullah prays, because he is also going to pray only for things that he knows Allah loves. Right? So that's the kind of dua we want. Right? The salawat also that we say, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Allah's already doing it. He says, I and my angels are already sending mercy or calling down for Allah's mercy on Rasulullah. And then he says, you also join in. Sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. And then you have all this guidance that this is the dua that's never rejected. Of course it's never rejected. Allah's already doing it. Then what's the point in us joining in? We want to get on the bandwagon. We want to be with wherever Allah is, whatever the angels are, whatever they're doing, we want to be with that. It's not redundancy. It's not that it's already taken care of. Let them take care of it. I'll do something else. No, let me do the exact same thing that the angels are doing. That's the thing to do. That's how I should serve Allah. That's how I should align with Allah, by doing that thing which good people are doing, which the right people are doing. Right? So our du'as should be in line with what Allah wants, not against what Allah wants. And so if Allah has decided, for instance, to punish a person because the person is has lost the way. Sin is one thing. If a person has committed sin, a Shi'i has committed sin, it's perfectly good to pray for forgiveness for that person. That's within the lines. And that's the good thing to do. But somebody who is an enemy of Allah, or has defied Allah, or someone who has defied the Ahlul Bayt, who are one with Allah in terms of their alignment to these kinds of things. Right? For me to then pray for forgiveness for this person who is not aligned with the Ahlul Bayt is potentially, not necessarily, but potentially at odds with what Allah wants to do. Now, if it's an enemy of the Ahlul Bayt, the Nasibi that we described, that Imam Hassan described, then there's no doubt. It would be absolutely wrong. What is the phrase in the Quran about Ibrahim's father? I've forgotten the verse itself, but it's not permissible for the believers to pray for the forgiveness of من بعد أن تبين أنه عدو لله, once it's become clear that this person is the enemy of God. And then it explains, well, what about Ibrahim praying for Azar? He also said, أستغفر لك ربي, I will pray for forgiveness for you, O Azar. So was he at odds with this principle that you shouldn't pray for somebody who is an enemy of God? Well, Ibrahim wasn't actually praying for Azar. He was saying, I will pray for you. Reform yourself. Leave off these idols. Come to the right path. Follow what I'm teaching you. When you do, I'll pray for your forgiveness. I'll pray to Allah and become your intercessor so I can make amends for what you've done in the past, because you've now reformed yourself for the future. Right? But when it becomes clear that he's an enemy of God and there is no hope, and he says, لَأَرْجُمَنَّكَ, if you tell me another word, I'm going to stone you, to Ibrahim, then he says, that's it. I'm going to go to my corner and you go your own way, and now I have nothing to do with you. Now I'm bari'un mink. I cut myself off from you. Qat'ur rahim. Qat'ur rahim is one of the major sins. Ibrahim does it. Why? Because it's justified. The rahim has gone so far and is so irreparably on the wrong path not only is he lost, but he's actually now going to cause violence to the believer, absolutely, that's the time for Qat'ur Rahim. And he's actually put forward as an example of the right way to do this. In Surah Al-Mumtahana, Allah praises Ibrahim and those who were with him and followed him for having said that we wash our hands of you, we are bari of you. Yeah. Okay, so that's the philosophy behind this prohibition. The Imam says when you say this fourth takbir and the fourth dhikr after it, say it in general terms. Allahumma ghfir lilladhina tabu. Allah forgive those who have turned to you. وَاتَّبَعُوا سَبِيلَكَ, and have followed the path to you. وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ, and protect them against the punishment of hellfire. In general terms, if the person you're talking about is included, Allah will include him. If he's not included, Allah won't include him. But you've said your duty, and you've said it in a way that observes these red lines. A second tradition, also from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he says, إِذَا صَلَّيْتَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِ, when you pray for a mu'min, a believer, meaning a Shi'i, Imami, فَادْعُ لَهُ, then pray for him. وَاجْتَهِدْ لَهُ فِي الدُّعَاء, and pray with your full effort. It's not just a casual dua, but whatever you can offer, as sincere, as much as you can offer it for your fellow believer. وَإِنْ كَانَ وَاقِفًا, what if he's waqifi? Now waqifi here doesn't mean a waqifi in the formal sense of someone who stopped after Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, but someone who stopped after any of the Imams. Anybody who deviated from the line of the Imams and abandoned Imam Ali alayhi salam, abandoned Imam Hussein alayhi salam, abandoned any of the Imams is a waqifi in this sense. So وَإِنْ كَانَ وَاقِفًا مُسْتَضْعَفًا, if the person has deviated from the line of the Imams and followed some false Imam or no Imam, but he's mustad'af, he's in that weak position, he's ignorant. He was raised wrong. He was exposed to wrong influences and he couldn't shake those influences. And now he's on the wrong path, but not because he's evil and he knows the truth and defies the truth, but because he wasn't exposed correctly to the truth. Then, فَكَبِّرْ وَقُلِ اللَّهُمَّ اغْفِرْ لِلَّذِينَ تَابُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا سَبِيلَكَ وَقِهِمْ عَذَابَ الْجَحِيمِ. Then say the Janazah prayer, but in that fourth takbir again, he says, to say the same dua in general terms. Another tradition from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says the same thing, that if the person is mustad'af, then say this dua, وَإِذَا كُنْتَ لَا تَدْرِي مَا حَالُهُ. What if I don't know what kind of person this is? I never met him, I don't know what kind of person he was in life, whether he was adamantly against, whether he was innocently against, what was his position in terms of his not being Shi'i. فَقُلِ اللَّهُمَّ إِنْ كَانَ يُحِبُّ الْخَيْرِ وَأَهْلَهُ فَاغْفِرْ لَهُ. So you can add this dua after saying the general dua. Oh Allah, if this person loved good and the doers of good, then forgive him and have mercy on him. وَتَجَاوَزْ عَنْهُ, and look past his sins. وَإِنْ كَانَ مُسْتَضْعَفْ مِنْكَ بِسَبِيلٍ فَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُ عَلَى وَجْهِ الشَّفَاعَةِ لَا عَلَى وَجْهِ الْوِلَايَةِ. So this part is something new. He says that if this person had some connection to you, this person did some favor to you, he had done some special goodness to you, maybe he's your neighbor, maybe he helped you with something, right? And so now you're at the janazah for this person who's not a Shi'i, but did some goodness to you. So you feel like you have a debt that you need to repay to this person, to offer him some prayer at this dire time of his, where he's now dead and now facing his whole accounting. So you feel like you want to repay it. That's a good sentiment that you should have. The Imam doesn't say that's a wrong sentiment. He says if you have this sentiment and this person is connected to you in this way, then ask for Allah's forgiveness, do istighfar for the person, but there's a nuance here. He says, istaghfir lahu ala wajhi shafa'a la ala wajhi al-wilaya. Don't ask for forgiveness from Allah insofar as this person knows the wali and is on the path of wilaya and the authority of the Imams. That's only there for those who actually believe in the Imams as awliya of Allah. The person who doesn't, yes, he has a connection. He's a Muslim, so he's a brethren in faith, and he did some good to you, and so you have a connection like that with him. So you can still pray for forgiveness, but in a very special, very kind of limited way. he says, ala wajh al-shafa'ah. So basically, you're not asking Allah absolutely that, oh Allah, forgive this person. That's the way you pray for a Shi'i. Say it in a way that you're interceding for the person insofar as you're basically vouching for this person because of the goodness that you saw from him. That, oh Allah, for instance, this person did some great goodness to me. If that's worthy of your, if that makes him worthy of your mercy, then have mercy, forgive him. Right? It's conditional though. I'm not aligning myself and kind of saying, making a demand of Allah, forgive this person. I'm saying if the goodness he did to me, if the connection I have with him makes him worthy of your forgiveness, then forgive him. I'll vouch for him insofar as he did something good to me. I'll be his shafi'. Now, can I vouch for him because he's a believer? No, he's not a believer. But I can vouch for him insofar as I saw goodness from him. Maybe I only saw goodness from him. I never saw him say a bad thing or do a bad thing. I can vouch that much. So if that's worth something to you, Allah, then I offer it. And I'll help this person, only after you give me permission, only after you have decided that he's worthy of that forgiveness. Recite wa salawat ala Muhammad wa alihi. Another tradition also from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam goes through the same procedure and says the same thing, but at the end he says, in kana mu'minan dakhala fiha. If this person who's mustad'af, about whom you don't really know where he lies in terms of his beliefs, but you saw some goodness from him, for instance, you pray for him in that general way, if that person in fact was a believer, or at least is excused for his lack of belief, then that prayer will help him. It'll apply to him. وَإِنْ كَانَ لَيْسَ بِمُؤْمِنٍ خَرَجَ مِنْهَا. And if he's not a mu'min, if he didn't deserve the prayer, then he's out of the prayer. The prayer still stands. It was a good deed on my part that I offered the prayer. Other people will be included because they might have fit the criteria of having done tawbah and followed Allah's path. So they'll be included. This person will be excluded. So it's all based on Allah's decision. I'm not going against Allah's decision. I'm saying things in a way that stays safe, but still does my duty before Allah and also my duty with respect to that goodness that I saw from the person, which is a godly act. All right. Now in terms of taslim, in terms of saying salam to other people, the first hadith in Al-Kafi is the famous story where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi in Medina, he had a lot of interactions with Jews because they were also residents of Medina in the beginning. And in this particular story, Jewish people are interacting with the Prophet and they keep on coming to him and saying, Assalamu alaikum. Very slyly leaving off the lam and saying, Assalamu alaikum, death to you. Right? Layyan bi aznatihim. That's how Allah describes them. They twist their tongue and kind of cleverly say this and that. Instead of saying hitta and entering the gate, they say hinta. Hitta means, oh Allah, forgive us for our sins. Like, drop our sins off of us. And they enter the gate. That's how they're supposed to enter the gates of Jerusalem. And they would have taken over the city. But they play jokes and they say hinta, wheat. They put a different word just to make a joke out of it. And now they're banished into the desert for 40 years. And they can't even enter the city they're destined to enter. For those 40 years, they lose Musa during that time. They don't even have their guide anymore. Right? So they cause so much trouble for themselves and then for other people by these kinds of things. Right? Ra'ina, the Muslims will say, Rasulullah, you're going too fast, slow down for us. Keep us in mind because we're not as fast as you. They say, oh, he's saying ra'na, idiot, fool. The Muslims are calling their prophet a fool. So twist words, change words in a way that would corrupt the meaning of those words. So here, instead of Assalamu alaikum to Rasulullah, they say Assalamu alaikum, death to you. And Rasulullah very delicately will say, alaikum, to you. Not same to you. Not wa alaikum, just alaikum. Wa alaikum is and to you, meaning to me and to you. That's not right. Alaikum means to you, not me. Right? The emphasis, the inflection is important. So he says, alaikum. Another person comes, same thing happens, alaikum. Another person, Aisha, who is with the Prophet, she becomes very angry. Let me read the phrase that she says. So she becomes angry. She calls down the la'na. She says, عليكم السام والغضب واللعنة يا معشر اليهود يا إخوة القردة والخنازير. Right? May Allah's anger and damnation be on you and death on you, O congregation of Jews, O brothers of those monkeys and pigs. So she speaks like this to them and retorts. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi says, Ya Aisha, inna al-fuhsha law kana mumathalan lakana mithala saw. If speaking indecently and in harsh words were to be manifest in front of us, personified, it would be a very ugly personification. Like, don't do this. You're manifesting some ugliness that is unworthy. She retorts to Rasulullah. She says, Ya Rasulullah, ama sami'ta ila qawlihim assalamu alaykum. Didn't you hear? They're not saying assalamu alaykum. They're saying assalamu alaykum. She's telling him what he didn't know, apparently. فقال بلى, of course I know what they said. أما سمعتي ما رددت عليهم قلت عليكم. Didn't you hear what I said? I said عليكم. I heard what they said. I gave them their reply. That's the end of it. He says, فَإِذَا سَلَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ مُسْلِمْ فَقُولُوا سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. When a Muslim says salam to you, then you say salam back. He says assalamu alaykum, you say either assalamu alaykum at very least or wa alaykum assalam. إِذَا حُيِّيتُمْ بِتَحِيَّةٍ فَحَيُّوا بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا أَوْ رُدُّوهَا. A verse of the Quran. It's also something, it's very basic, but sometimes I see that the practice is not in line with this very basic principle. Right? Allah says, if someone greets you, إِذَا حُيِّيتُمْ بِتَحِيَّةٍ, with a greeting, then حَيُّوا بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا. First he says, then reply with a better greeting, or at least رُدُّوهَا, or at least give the same greeting back. So the very least you have to do, if I say assalamu alaikum, you have to at least say assalamu alaikum back to me. The same thing I just told you. If I say salam, then at least you have to say salam to me. Right? But you should never say less. If I say assalamu alaikum, you shouldn't say salam. That's wrong. You failed in your reply. I've gotten reward for having said the Islamic greeting. You failed in a basic right that you owe me, and you'll be liable for that. Right? So this is a very basic principle, but it's something that I see sometimes we're not practicing, and so we should make sure to practice that. So Rasulullah also gives that basic lesson to Aisha. He says, if a Muslim comes to you, إِذَا جَاءَكَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُوا بِآيَاتِنَا فَقُلْ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ, then say assalamu alaikum to that person. وَإِذَا سَلَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ كَافِرٌ فَقُولُوا عَلَيْكَ. And if a kafir says salam to you, also if they say salam to you, which they might. These people didn't even say salam, didn't have the decency, they said sam. But if they say salam, like we sometimes encounter, with goodwill, they say assalamu alaikum just because they know it's a Muslim greeting, you still can't reply and say alaikum assalam or wa alaikum assalam or any of those things. You can say alaikum. Right? That's delicate, it's tactful, right? But it doesn't transgress the bounds. Whatever is due to you, let that be on you. If it's peace, then let peace be on you. But if it's not peace, then that's on you. So I'm doing my duty, I'm being polite, I'm being courteous as they were being courteous to me. But I can't use that courtesy as an excuse to then transgress against Allah. Right? So rifq is important. Right? In the continuation of this hadith as well, Rasulullah says that rifq, when you add rifq or like gentleness, tact to anything, it becomes beautiful. And if you add harshness, coarseness to anything, it becomes ugly. Right? So be tactful, be courteous, especially if the person has goodwill. These people didn't have goodwill. If the person has goodwill, then you should also show goodwill, be pleasant, be cheerful, appreciate the fact that they're making this effort to greet you, but say it correctly, say alaykum. Another hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So the previous hadith was about a non-Muslim initiating salam to you. This one is about whether or not we can initiate salam to them. He says, لا تبدأوا أهل الكتاب بالتسليم. Don't initiate salam with Ahlul Kitab. Or that's Ahlul Kitab are the closest to us. So non-Ahlul Kitab or mushrik or mulhid, other categories, of course you can't say salam to them. But even Ahlul Kitab, who are the closest to us, still believers in a book, even then he says, don't initiate salam to them. وَإِذَا سَلَّمُوا عَلَيْكُمْ فَقُولُوا عَلَيْكُمْ. But when they initiate to you, you can't be rude to them, so say alaykum. Respond. One more tradition from Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam. Actually, in the interest of time, let me just skip to another hadith. I recite with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Oh. Let me finish this with this one last story. This is back in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And it's the story of Surat Sad, where the mushrikeen come to Abu Talib to kind of intervene and speak to Rasulullah and get him to cool down or to calm down and not be confrontational and this and that. So the hadith says, أقبل أبو جهل ومعه قوم من قريش فدخلوا على أبي طالب عليه السلام. So Abu Jahl and the other leaders of Quraysh, they came in the presence of Abu Talib. فقالوا إن ابن أخيك قد آذانا وآذى آلهتنا فادعه ومره فليكف عن آلهتنا ونكف عن إلهه. So they tell Abu Talib that your nephew has caused a lot of pain to us and caused pain to our gods. So call him and command him to stop causing this pain. And if he does, if he kind of leaves our gods alone, then we will also leave his God alone. فبعث أبو طالب إلى رسول الله. Abu Talib sends to Rasulullah and says فدعاه فلما دخل النبي صلى الله عليه وآله لم يرى في البيت إلا مشركا. When Rasulullah comes into the room with all these Quraysh, he sees that there are no Muslims here. They're all mushrik. فقال السلام على من اتبع الهدى. Right? He doesn't say assalamu alaikum because they don't deserve it. He says it in this general way, assalamu ala man ittaba al-huda. Peace be on, or peace be with those who follow guidance. In a general sense. And this is how he would write his letters. We know that he wrote letters to all the kings and the rulers of the world towards the end of his life in Medina. If you look at those letters, we have records of those letters. There's a compilation called Makatib al-Rasul that has all these letters there. And they all start with this. Assalamu ala man ittaba al-huda, either at the beginning or the end. So he doesn't say salam to the person. He's not Muslim yet. He's just calling that person to Islam. He lays out the fundamentals and say, come answer this call. I'm the messenger of God. And then he ends with this peace to those who follow guidance. Right, so that's the way to initiate. If you have to initiate salam and give a greeting, to give the semblance of saying salam to the people, then you should say it like this. So it's a general way of saying it. It doesn't necessarily include the people you're talking to, unless they are also those who follow guidance. They're Muslim, or they're trying to learn about Islam, and they're working towards becoming Muslim. All right, so this is the way Rasulullah interacted with those mushrikeen, and he interacted with the rulers of the world as well. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So on this occasion of celebrating Imam Hassan's birth, I thought we should look at one of his teachings. So this hadith where he talks about these three different categories of people opens our eyes, especially to this third category, which we might not think about as much, but is actually more relevant because probably most people who are non-Shi'i, non-Muslim are in this mustadaf category, right? Most people that we know are generally decent people. Generally, they have goodwill. You know, they have many good qualities, but for whatever reason, they're not able to see the truth fully or accept the truth or make a change, and so they fall into this category. So we have to interact with them well. The way we interact with them is critical because that could be the factor that influences them to stop being indifferent and now to make a commitment and say, I want to be what you are. I want to become like, as good as you are, as balanced as you are, as good of a contributor to society as you are. I want to become like that. Right? So if our interactions are positive, then that can have a great effect on the person. And even if it doesn't have an effect on the person, that's still our duty to be kind and gracious and compassionate even with those kinds of people. Right? But we have certain red lines that we have to observe. And so while being gentle and gracious and all of that, we should also make sure that we observe these red lines so that we're not transgressing against Allah as we're actually trying to call people towards Allah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.